John Black from Mediview is with us today, and John is co-founder and chief commercialization officer of Mediview, the technology. There's also a booth or a setup outside for those who are present with us if you want to stop by. I think we also want to mention that while we're seeing some really cool technologies, really cutting edge in some ways with AI, augmented reality, virtual reality, I think Dom's last response about the importance of starting with the human in all of this, whether it's the patient as adult, patient as family, or patient as child, is so important to at least how we work. And we hope that that's not lost. It's not technology first, but really the people aspect and finding the right fitting technology, building the right technology to fit that need. So John, without further ado, stage is yours. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, some slides for the show. Minimize the screen. My name is John Black, and I have the privilege to represent Mediview today. And I do want to start off by saying that I was elated to come here today. I had the opportunity to listen to some of the earlier sessions and was really intrigued and inspired by some of the problems that the researchers were trying to solve, are problems that we're starting to recognize in the commercial aspect as gaps in the product. And to know that many of those challenges are being taken at a translational research level truly was inspiring. So I really want to commend the people who are presenting this morning and their fantastic topics. Mediview actually got its start out of Cleveland. Many of you may not know this, but you're sitting in the middle of what's being termed the XR belt, or the augmented reality belt. Stretches roughly from New York all the way back into Michigan, and Cleveland is at the center of that XR belt. Our technology was born out of the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center, where our initial clinical research that led to the key discoveries of our technology was formulated from that exact theme that we've heard today, is starting with the end user, understanding the needs of the physician, understanding the complications that exist within patients' anatomy. So what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today is the journey of what we saw from that translational research, things that were brought up this morning, and how this company has moved from translational research into commercial utility and is now at the precipice of commercial viability with a 510(k) that is currently under review from the Food and Drug Administration. So our technology is solving an age-old problem. And so the gentleman that you see on the screen before you is Dr. Chuck Martin. He's an interventionalist that works out of the Cleveland Clinic, and he is frequently performing a procedure called ablation of a cancerous tissue or lesion. And so this involves taking a needle or trocar and inserting it with high precision into the center of tumor or an area of a tumor to deliver a therapy that will destroy the cancer and treat the patient. Chuck Martin is an excellent friend. He is a great physician and a wonderful person, but everything about this photo is wrong. That physician is breaking all ergonomic training to look at a 2D screen that sits off to the side, and Mediview thought there was technology available that could change this situation. So when I look at this photo, I think of the technology that exists within fighter pilots. They use augmented reality heads-up display. I think of the ergonomics when professional athletes perform. Serena Williams or a Hall of Fame pitcher, they do not change their ergonomics and perform at the exact same level. So Mediview is utilizing what's called augmented reality technology. And if you haven't seen one of these headsets, I would encourage anybody to step out and take a hands-on demo of the technology or visit a website. But this emerging technology unlocks an entire suite of digital tools that have never been available to us before. So solving these problems of ergonomics, visualization, and the data we can collect from these new digital tools is fascinating, and I'd like to share a little bit more about this with you today. So Mediview's mission is to simplify, democratize, and inform healthcare. The integrated collaboration that exists within these augmented reality technologies allows for a Zoom or Teams-like experience directly through the first person of the end user. So as digital content is overlaid in the first person to the bedside clinician, that data can also be transmitted to a remote clinician that could be an expert. One of the greatest theses we've heard on this technology and its practical use within cancer care comes from Dr. Jamie Wagner at University of Kansas Medical Center, where she's identified that for every 10 miles of travel, a patient is 11% less likely to seek care at a National Cancer Institute. And this has tremendous impact to long-term outcomes and the plan for the patient. Democratizing the interventionalist tools is another area of focus for Mediview. The ability to view the data and have the imaging streamed in an ergonomic way and also broadcast this data over distance really could lend itself to those rural or underserved communities that can't have a hub of excellence in cancer care directly at their doorstep. But this collaboration and technology and digital tools combined may offer some solutions that will impact cancer outcomes in the future. And another area that we focus on is the data, the evidence. What we're building in augmented reality is actually built on gaming software. So if you can imagine the old game Pac-Man, as some of you may have seen, the Pac-Man comes and eats the ghost. That is digitalized information. We're creating a very similar scene within the entire operating suite where every point of that surgery is now monitored, and you can learn from those outcomes and to make a better game and better software. So we have high aspirations here, but you'll find that this startup seems to be powered by something bigger than itself. The hands-on demo is the best way to experience augmented reality. We try to reduce this to written or spoken word. The best I'll have for the remote audience is a video showing the Mediview technology in action. So what you're seeing here is the first-person view through the headset. And so the physician has the ability to gain X-ray vision and see through the skin and the actual patient's anatomy that exists, and therefore giving him a form of situational awareness where he understands where the tumors are, where the critical anatomy is. He also can understand through instrumentation tracking, how do I get my instrument to that pinpoint location within the body without harming other critical structures on the way. So this technology was never possible until these augmented reality headsets came to fruition. So our capabilities involve this 3D registration, real-time adjustment, soft tissue and bone registration, live imaging on a very scalable platform with the collaboration that we spoke of earlier. Now, how does one get X-ray vision, you might be asking? So there is a workflow, and this is part of the beauty of the relationship between Mediview and a recently announced human factor study and sponsored research agreement with University Health Ventures and Innovations. We're really assessing the workflow to try to find the easiest pathway for care and understand how can we not impact the clinician's day with a burden of time or cost, but rather present this technology to them that could have great impact on outcomes without interrupting the current workflow. So you'll see a lot of the workflow that we use today is pretty similar to what we currently use in standard practice. To get X-ray vision, the first thing you have to have is a preoperative CT or MRI of the patient. And we use that to build a holographic twin or digital twin of that patient. And part of the magic that Mediview does is we found a way to take the digital you and overlay it with the real you. And what we discovered in our early human use cases was the CT scan of you may not be the same you that exists on the day of surgery. So people move, their organs moved and shift, hydration levels can affect the size of the organ. I may be a little bit less jiggly before the holidays than after, but this technology has the ability to overcome that. And we learned that through the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center after our fifth human patient. And what we realized is it was necessary to bring the real-time imaging in and fuse it with the preoperative imaging. And this made all the difference. So our technology now has a form of visualization and guidance that is under review by the Food and Drug Administration. And after that cycle, we hope that this technology will be in the hands of clinicians right here in Cleveland before it's available anywhere else in the world. So we have encouraging data from those early usability and publications. So the cases that were done here under IRB led to a publication in the Journal of Vascular and Interventional Radiology that showed some of the potential benefits to the clinician and gave us the insight we needed from the end user to build a technology that potentially has value to him. The clinical usability studies are underway. We are working starting next week with the University Hospital's interventional radiology teams to put our early minimum viable product in the hands of clinicians for refinement and optimization of the clinical workflows. And much as you've heard echoed throughout the day, this is a critical step in human-centered design. Our bench evaluation and accuracy data that we submitted to the FDA was also very encouraging. We chose lesions that were relatively deep, lesions that could be simulated for either an ablation procedure or a biopsy procedure. And we studied the accuracy using benchtop data and then translated that into cadaveric models. But at targeting lesions that were relatively depth of almost 9 centimeters, we found that our accuracy came through at 2.2 millimeters, which should be best in class for surgical navigation platforms of this kind. None of that would have been possible without the early learnings by putting this in the hands of clinicians. So the researchers that are out working today and building technologies, it is very rewarding to see these types of technologies move through that translational research cycle and get to the patient's bedside. And I would encourage everyone to continue to partner with industry and try to pull that research out into the investment communities and the entrepreneurial communities, because there really is opportunity for funding of these projects. This simulated liver ablation procedure, what you would see through the eyes of this headset is you would have a detailed view of the anatomy. And I like to use the term situational awareness. During a procedure, you may want to see the cancer and the bones, but after you've made initial entry into the body with your instrument, those bones could become a distraction. So the physician actually has the ability to, using voice commands, layer in or layer out the anatomy that he wants to see at that time, so that the hologram doesn't become overwhelming to the clinician. It's fascinating to see the hologram projected with the real-time fusion of the ultrasound to refine that registration. And what you see right here is track device holograms for critical structure avoidance. We talked a little bit before about how that preoperative view may change the day of the surgery. What you're seeing is a view of the ultrasound linked and registered to the human body, so that as you place your ultrasound probe on the body, you see the real-time imaging fused with the preoperative imaging in a way that has never existed before. You can literally visualize sound waves through an augmented reality headset. And this is a graphic that is a little bit more meaningful to me today. We talk about these ablation procedures, and we found data that suggests that less than a third of patients that could actually benefit from an ablation procedure actually get one. And so there is a huge opportunity for patients here to get a technology that can be used over distance, can make a clinician more accurate, but also broaden that treatment paradigm out to patients who really need it. You may notice I'm wearing black today. And so unfortunately, the painful touch of cancer has touched us recently. I will be leaving this presentation to go to the funeral and viewing of a mentor that I've had and a key community member from Northwest Ohio who is victim to this exact narrative here, that they would have been a great patient for an ablation procedure, potentially allowing them more time, more quality time with their family, and extended life. But because of the care pathways that existed and the limitations in visualization, he was not able to get that treatment before he unfortunately passed, but was scheduled to be part of this clinical trial. So we're really happy and elated to partner with university hospitals. You've got the finest clinicians in the world here. I've seen some of the most excellent research this morning in cancer care, and it's reaffirming that these technologies will make it to the bedside and put a thumb on the outcomes for patients everywhere. So I can pause there for questions. Thank you.
This is really amazing. Thank you. So it seems like this would be easier for maybe clinicians that grew up gaming. How are you conquering getting through to clinicians who are newer to this technology?
That is an excellent question. In fact, it is the theme of the entire next 2 quarters for our startup next year. We refer to it as customer journey or customer success. And what we've identified is that doesn't matter your training or your education, what amounts to is building the physician's efficacy in using the product. So we've made a commitment fundamentally as an organization to invest in the clinicians, no matter of their predetermined skill level when they first put on these augmented reality headsets. It is true. It's absolutely true. Gamers pick up the technology and it's very intuitive. But our clinicians that have not grown up as gamers have found incredible value in this as well. And I'll give a great example from a pulmonary and critical care specialist that was describing to me that when he went through training, he learned how to do many of these procedures without ultrasound. And then ultrasound was proven to be a better way of performing certain procedures that he does every single day. So not only was he forced to learn ultrasound, he had to change the ergonomics of his body from doing a procedure the same way for 15 years. And that compounded his struggles. So the investment that they make in learning the augmented reality technology, we think can have additional benefits versus somebody that has actually grown up gaming, because there are 2 very different clinical use cases and what we call user stories of what the technology can bring to them. Excellent question.
We're trying to see if there are any questions from the audience. Doesn't look like quite yet. Curious about the demo you have behind our walls here today. What can we expect for those who are able to connect with you and the team after today's session and/or event?
In a short answer, X-ray vision. The Phantom that's out there is meant to mimic the real clinical experience as closely as we can without being in the hospital. So the Phantom or the model has had a CT scan. And that CT scan has been built into a hologram, and you can actually go through the registration process of aligning the hologram with the Phantom that exists out on the table and mimic an ablation procedure. Some of the technology that we are innovating on will actually allow you to predict the ablation zone or the destroy zone for the cancer, so you can really get an appreciation, 3D and full spatial awareness of what the technology can do. So if you have not demoed, our colleagues Darcy and Lisa will be available to give you X-ray vision and to see how easy it can be to perform one of these procedures with some of these emerging technologies when utilized correctly.
Any other questions from our intimate audience or online? Yes.
Real quickly, what very impressive, really wonderful. What sort of additional support staff is needed to implement this? I mean, I suppose in the long run, does it take more people, or I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, that's also a great question. We anticipate that it's going to cause an investment in Mediview to actually put people in the OR during a period of time until the usability of the product reaches a point where we don't have to be there. One of the colleagues we have here is a field clinical specialist who actually used to work at university hospitals, transitioned into the industry side. So we are staffing adopters of the technology with people who can bridge the technology with the actual clinical environment to not impact the workflow, but learn from it on how we can automate certain processes so that eventually we don't have to be there in the same capacity. But talking about that customer journey, every day we wake up and figure out how can we make this technology easier to use for the clinician. Thank you.
No other questions. It seems like one of those things where you just got to put on the helmet and get into the experience to fully appreciate it. John, thank you so much for joining us.